Is that just because
Get your phone out.
That's my phone because of it makes economic sense in this
That's a nightmare. What? I forgot my camera. I never forget. It is tonight.
Hello guys, this seems to be emptier.
I wonder why.
We're going to blame the EU debate that's going on.
We're going to blame the EU.
We'll blame the EU, but that does not reflect the Little's position on the debate. What's happening? Why are you doing that? Okay, so welcome. It has been so long from we've had a Litter debate. I think it's like 1 month. Maybe 5 weeks. So the last meeting we had was the AGM. I think most of you sort of know the results of that. So next year's council, forgive me if I get this wrong. Mr. Ben Murphy. So if we could give a round of applause to Mr. Ben Murphy. President of the 168th session, who is not actually here today.
He is listening in.
That's commitment for you.
He's listening in, but I am assured that he will be here next year. Secretary is Mr. Robert Whitehurst, who is sitting there, and he will be resuming that position. Treasurer, I'm looking at Mr. Jeremy Mueller, who's sitting here. We're all counting the prices right. Internal convener is Miss Lily Better, who is also not here. Sorry, we've got half of it as a quorum. External convener is Mr. Andrew Hanneman, who is he's here. Outreach officer at the back, happy days, Mr. Andy Dillon. Open rep is Mr. Craig Miller, who's at the EU debate, might I say, so we can boo him. But he won't listen to this because he's at the EU debate. And the second tier rep is Mr. Peter Dunn. So well done all. And I will be looking forward to it next year if you're all back, or even if you're away and come back to your holidays Thursday night, I don't know. What else do we have? Oh yes, Conference today is our announcement. It's on the 26th of April. I'm sure I've followed you all before you come in to sign up for it. £30 if you eat steak, £28 if you're vegetarian, pescatarian or vegan that week. Yeah, so sign up that there. We're going to have a drinks reception here at 6 o'clock, and it dress code's black tie / fancy suit / sort of look nice. Because the Reform Club is a private members club, just saying. So thank you to Mr. Stephen Goss for that. And yeah, it should be a good night. I think we're going to... Yes, thanks Stephen for the case of
Well done, Stephen.
Yeah, well done. And I think it's a basement bar for now. I'm not sure what the bar is. We've confirmed afterwards, so that should be good fun. The basement bar? What's that? Pretty sure it's below. Yeah, so it's in town, so us will get drunk. Come here for drinks, some photographs. I think the Queen's. Please. Come here for drinks, get some photographs and all your receipts and stuff, and then go to the Reform Club and then have some drinks afterwards. And I was promised that Lily would be smashed. So if there's any reason to come, just saying. Last year she was drunk at 5 o'clock. Like we were going jogging.
She did fall.
Yeah, 5 o'clock she was drunk. So I expect no less from all of you this year. We'll get on to the minutes from last week we were at, which was 5 weeks ago, which was this house believes women impose their own glass ceiling. So like welcome to Robbie Wickers.
I am actually, thank you for noticing.
Wait, I'll propose a motion private members to move them.
The 13th.
Finn, please.
Continue. I will. The 13th ordinary meeting of the 167th session of the Literary and Scientific Society took place on the 10th of March 2016 and was attended by 36 members. The motion of the evening was, this House believes women impose their own glass ceiling. Opening the case with the proposition was Miss Katharina Schwartz. She began by stating that everyone agrees that there is a disparity between the opportunities for men and women in the Western world. However, she stated the issue was more complex than simply attributing it to a specific gender, stating that it requires a nuanced feminist analysis. She stated that studies have shown that both men and women are 40% less likely to hire a woman than a man for the same position, which led Ms. Schwartz to conclude that there was in fact a double glazing of the glass ceiling contributed to by men and women alike. Opening for the opposition was SU President Ms. Keitha McNeill, who began with some statistics to convey how unrepresented women are in society. Just 21 of the 108 MLAs are female, with just 4% of Fortune 500 members being women. She claimed that what was needed to combat this equality in workplace representation was to follow the example of the Republic of Ireland and introduce the gender quotas, which have seen a 40% increase in women in high-ranking occupations in society. She stated that in order to move on from the male, stale and pale in Northern Ireland, we needed to combat the toxic masculinity which so pervades the workplace. Continuing the case of the proposition was a maiden speaker, Miss Orla Loughran-Hayes. She began with a guaranteed crowd pleaser by quoting literary favourite Katie Hopkins. Misogyny is a disguise for saying business is too tough for me. She claimed that studies have shown that 1/3 of women will avoid jobs where they will be the centre of attention due to a lack of confidence. She claimed that women will create their own glass ceiling through reality shows such as Keeping Up with the Kardashians, who for some reason seem to come up every week at the lyrics, which was leading women to spending more time on their makeup than their homework. Quote, speaking second for opposition was Miss Evie Watts, who stated the motion was ridiculous. She informed the House that there were 5 strong women at the table that evening, asserting that to be a female in 2016 takes serious balls. In response to the proposition, Miss Evie Watts asked why on earth it was the fault of women that they are made to feel unconfident in society, as well as lamenting the fact the idea that women need to remain in the home, which is still preached by some in our society. She concluded by saying that society punishes women for having children, and that the idea that women should be blamed for their oppression is not welcome in the modern age. Concluding for the proposition was Miss Gemma Callum, who claimed that the patriarchy in our country is created by men and reinforced by women. She asserted that the opposition were disregarding women, as being non-autonomous beings and capable of making decisions for themselves, and that each woman will experience a different definition of what was the glass ceiling. She claimed that women need to band together and not impose gender roles on themselves, and that to award men alone with the power to dictate the female population was a ludicrous concept. Concluding for the opposition and so debate was Mr. Kevin Van Blanken. He was blunt in claiming that the proposition had made no valid arguments and had instead done the opposition's job for them by insisting on blaming women for their own problems in breaking through the glass ceiling. He asserted that society created an environment for women which undermines their self-esteem, leading female employees to shy away from new opportunities and interviews, creating a self-perpetuating belief in the process. The debate then moved to the floor where questions were heard from Jamie Cargill, Finbar Rogers, Sophia Neff, James McNally, Conor McKay, Finbar Rogers, Joe Bishop and Mr. Ben Murphy. A vote based on House opinion was taken beforehand on the motion. This House believes women oppose their own glass ceiling, which read 8 ayes, 18 nays and 9 abstentions. And finally, a casting vote based on Speaker's performance was taken, which read 4 ayes, 7 nays and 9 abstentions. May I take the minutes as read? Thank you.
Before we start into private member business, you're not going to believe this, but I forgot an announcement. Shame as I know. So the Duffin competition, I believe, is next week, Owen? Yep. I think that was a confident yes. So Duffin competition is for Speaker of the Year, so anybody can sign up for that. It's going to be a BP style debate, so the motion is going to be released 15 minutes before, well, 20 minutes before. You'll have 15 minutes to prepare. It's going to be in teams of 2, but we're looking for 1 individual Speaker of the Year. So if any of you would like to sign up for that debate, please speak to me afterwards, or speak to Owen, who's in the back there. And next we move on to private members' business, and I believe we do have one motion for private members' business already, Mr. Jonathan Finley.
I propose the motion that this House would move Finbar Rogers out of that seat that no one ever sits on, for good reason that no one knows, but it is a good one.
Objection. Seconded. Objection.
Seconded, okay. I believe there's no opposition to that.
Objection.
Chris Spratt. Yes, Chris Spratt.
Opposed with the condition that Mr. Finbar Rogers, if he leaves that seat before the end of the debate, owes the House a bottle of port.
If he leaves it?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone second that amendment to the motion?
Seconded.
Okay. Any thoughts?
What you've done there is you've given Finbar a platform to 1, be a nuisance, and 2, buy alcohol. He does this every week.
Yeah, but he doesn't buy alcohol for us every week. He builds that all up until one point where we have to threaten him to buy the alcohol.
Can you put an appropriate in that the port must be shared amongst the members?
Okay, does anybody accept that if Finn stays there, he has to buy port for the society?
I would like to propose an amendment.
Sure.
He may not remove his hands from the armrest or open his mouth.
So you may not remove your hands from the armrests or your wife.
Yeah, that's it.
If we could just use it as a pillory, when we have that in lieu of the bottle of port, we can just throw things at it.
An objection to Finn's motion on the grounds that it is a very comfortable seat, and I know for a fact that he is sitting down.
Clarification for the listeners, of which we have like hundreds.
Stay safe out there.
Finn is sitting on the throne directly behind the speaker this evening. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why, not even Finn. So I think so have we moved on to? Did we second your amendment?
I'll second that.
So you have to not speak and sit with your hands on the armrests.
If an amendment is seconded, then we don't get a vote on the original motion.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
think you can propose to go back to the original. No, I think you can propose to go back to the original.
I'm not sure if I care enough. Yeah. Somebody else would like to
We'll
go back
just
to the
take a
original.
vote on whether Finn will move. Does that make sense?
What a motion.
And whether he will. So it's just like
I believe
probability.
we're on Chris Spratt's proposal.
Well, no, I seconded Stefan's
But
amendment.
Finn proposed a rejection by saying no.
Did anyone second that? Did anyone second that? No.
Anyone second?
Bring it back.
No. You didn't second it, no. Anyone want to second that? Grand, okay. So we're on Stefan's. We're going to take a vote on whether Finn should remain in the seat, and if he does, he has to buy the society a bottle of port, but he also has to not say anything and keep his hands on the armrests.
Do we need 2 votes for that?
No, but it's an amendment to the amendment, so it's supplemented.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But you're speaking, so yes.
Wasn't the amendment he has to remain in his seat, but if he does not,
He has
Yeah.
Oh, he
Yes.
does not.
And the amendment is if he removes his hands from the armrest, his hands have to be on the armrests.
Yeah.
If he removes them or opens his mouth or gets up, he has to buy the society a bottle of port.
This is the problem of democracy.
Second set.
Well, this is how
Okay, we'll just go to a vote. All of those who think that Finn he's distracted.
We're turning into onshore regime France.
So,
Fuck this and go.
Damn it.
He gets fined anyway for swearing, I hope.
yes, I believe that Mr. Finbar, you have been fined a bottle of port for that swear word that you sort of explained about their recording.
All that effort. All that effort.
As well. So, thank you. I believe the comments have to be made. It'd be an appropriate time to have that. Have a seat, gentlemen. Okay, any other points of parliamentary business? Anybody? Yes.
I would like to say that we should not speak ill of our own members and their probability of getting sloshed at an upcoming formal.
Here.
Second.
Second. Okay, fair enough. Apologies, Lily, but. Any other points of parliamentary business?
More a question to the House actually. It's kind of a serious one actually. In series of the recent Brussels attacks and the Paris attacks that preceded them, and GCHQ actually finding intelligence of possible London attacks, does this House believe that Europe should rethink its Schengen policy in favour of a more pragmatic border policy?
Okay, thank you very much. Any points on that topic?
no.
Yes.
Well, I think Schengen is really critical to Europe's single currency, and if we abandon Schengen, we have difficulty in getting getting the workforce able to move to jobs in place of asymmetric shocks to the economy. So let's say if Spain's doing badly, we want as few barriers as possible. Let's say if Germany's doing well and Spain's doing badly, that Spanish workers can move to Germany, so that because it's all under one monetary policy of the European Central Bank, I think Schengen's important, let's say.
Well, the Eurozone and Schengen are two separate agreements, and although they've got a close relationship within the EU apparatus, what we're seeing here is what's been brought up specifically as security policy, in particular with regard to border management. Places like Greece have fallen into complete and utter administrative chaos, and while we continue to almost have a blind eye to this problem, and we don't institute temporary measures to control the issues at hand, the whole house of cards is going to collapse. In particular, which includes the Eurozone, this needs temporary management, regardless of how you think that's related to the wider European agreements.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I would like to comment that border controls have been introduced now on virtually every border, and borders in Southern Europe are closed and you can't get past without rigorous checks on every single crossing. And even on borders between Poland and Germany, there are now border checks regularly.
Sure. So that's a temporary measure that might solve the problem.
Sure, yeah, I was aware of that, but what I was more talking about... Yeah, I was aware of that, but I was talking more about, see, most of those policies are more country specific, and it's not really a Europe-wide effort. That's what I was really talking more about, but yeah, sure, I take the point.
Yes?
Well, the European Union also has a very extensive intelligence network itself. EUPOL, by not having any powers in and of itself of arrest or anything, does use its infrastructure to distribute intelligence across the European framework. And that there would be something that you would lose if you became more nationalistic in a way. And that those connections, not necessarily based on Schengen, obviously I know that, but if you lose those sort of connections, you might lose some sort of intelligence that might be valuable.
Thank you very much. Yes?
Furthermore, I think it's important to realize that where the terrorists that were actually, or that committed terrorist acts in Paris, then lived in Brussels and eventually went back to Brussels. You also see when they were unable to perform a terrorist attack in Paris, that they could also choose Brussels as a target. So I don't think that closing borders within the EU is necessarily going to decrease all terrorism. It just, because there's undoubtedly also terrorist cells active in France that might choose targets in France.
On that point?
Well, one last point.
Yeah. Well, specifically with regard to the Paris ones, I'm not too much sure about the details in the Brussels ones, but both the people who were involved in it and the weapons that were used were smuggled through from the former Yugoslav countries using the Free Borders Agreement. So, although it's impossible to say whether this specific one might have been prevented by specific measures in Brussels and the French border, but it is unquestionable to say that the current situation has enabled what has happened.
If I may add just one more, I know time's tight, we can finish with the next one.
Then we'll finish in the bar afterwards.
Yeah, I was. It's interesting. It's also in the light of the migrant crisis, as everyone's aware of, and all the rest of it. And there's many different points of view, both sides. I think they have merit in each. But there was also a recent statistic I think I should bring up more in the line of terrorism and difference of ideas. It was that current Sweden. There were statistics released from there that it is now. And I say this just with no implication or implying anything else, it is now the rape capital of Europe. Its rape ratings have gone up 1,400%. And it's second only to Lenosa in South Africa in the world currently.
I feel like that deserves a response.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this is definitely the final one, but respond to that.
This is largely due to, its rape has increased in Sweden, but this is largely due to changes in the law of what is regarded as rape, and You also can't really compare countries because they all have different laws on it. I know in Sweden it's quite a special case because if, say, a husband rapes their wife 300 times, that's listed as 300 cases of rape, whereas in another country it would be counted as one.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to, have you any final private members' business? Yes.
So, may we all congratulate Poland on their lowest rape cases in Europe. Thank you.
Okay. Is anyone like to second that motion? That Eric would congratulate Poland on having the lowest number of rape cases in Europe? No. Thank you.
That's actually quite a good thing to do, but it just sounds dodgy.
Well done. An endorsement of Poland's current government. I don't think anyone wants it.
Now.
Unofficially well done, Poland. Any last
I have one from Mr. Ben Murphy on from Twitter. Ben Murphy has a motion to banish Mr. Rogers to the black hole of Calcutta.
Seconded. Any for or against banishing Mr. Finbar Rogers to the black holes?
I doubt the logistics of such an action, to be honest.
Oh, there's always one.
We can try.
I think it's been filled in since the 18th century, but we can check.
Okay, well, we'll chuck that Okay, we'll move on to President's questions. Has anybody got a question for me or about the Society or the wider Council? No? Great, okay. We will get started with today's debate then, which is this House would divest from fossil fuels. Same rules as always, 7-minute speeches, first announcement are protected, and stand up, say on the point, sir, on the point, ma'am, if you want to ask a question, no barking, or I will shout at you. And we'll have questions and answers at the end. I believe that's all there is. So I would like to welcome the first speaker for tonight is Keelan. Thank you.
Fossil fuels, they're bad. They're not good. That's it. Thank you. So, the motion is this House would divest from fossil fuels, which means, basically, we disinvest in fossil fuel companies like Exxon and the rest. And what I have here is a big list of statistics and science that says why exactly fossil fuel companies are a big, terrible thing, and we should not give them any more of our money. But first, a quick rundown on what a fossil fuel is, and by extension, what the greenhouse gases are. So, a fossil fuel is, as the name might imply, a fuel made of a fossil. Yeah. So we got coal, gas, oil, sometimes methane, sometimes it's not a fossil fuel, depends how it's produced. And they're used as fuels, again, as the name might imply. And generally we set fire to them. This releases carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the environment. What a greenhouse gas does is it traps heat in the atmosphere. And that's not very good, as it turns out. Just in case you're not sure that there's scientific consensus on that, there is. Okay. 97.1% of scientists agree. We're doing global warming and it's all our fault. And the only people who disagree are people who have no idea about the climate or are outrageously paid off by oil companies. So you probably don't really want to listen to them. Anyway, at the minute, we've managed to heat the planet about a degree above pre-industrial levels, which doesn't sound like much, but it's actually caused quite a lot of bad things to happen, such as a third of the summer ice in the Arctic melting, the oceans becoming 30% more acidified, and also just a slight increase in sea level, and increase in intense weather patterns, which is to say that they get more intense, not that they become more common, like hurricanes. They're getting worse. And as it turns out, all this is worse than expected. There were models for this, and they have been just blown out of the water, relatively speaking. And we're trying to limit things to 2 degrees of global warming. that might not actually be enough to stop things from going horribly wrong, but it's a target we've set anyway. If we stop all fossil fuel usage right now, we'd end up with about 1.6 degrees of global warming, because there's a bit of a feedback effect. It takes about 100 years for carbon dioxide to get out of the atmosphere. So everything that's there will continue making things hotter for quite a while. We have about 565 gigatons of carbon, approximately, to use before things go horribly wrong. It turns out, if you account for all the reserves that are accounted for in every oil company across the world, they're planning on burning about 6 times that. Yeah. It's not gonna end too well.
On that point, sir.
Go on.
Most of the oil reserves discovered by oil companies are completely unextractable, and they will require more energy to extract than you will actually get out from them.
That doesn't mean they're not trying to extract them.
No,
This is accounted for in their share price. And incidentally, their share price is what divesting from actually, cares about. They're planning on burning about 3,000 gigatons worth of carbon. And that's why we should divest from them, so they don't. If we do end up burning all that, most of the planet's going to become uninhabitable. The sea levels will rise quite a bit. Humanity will be literally incapable of adapting to the level of heat, as it turns out. So we'll literally just die of being too warm.
On that point.
Yes.
Are you saying that people can't survive if the temperature will be 2 degrees
What
hotter?
I'm saying is that the temperature was 6 degrees hotter, which is what we're predicting at the end of the century. Human habitability in a lot of areas would be pushed to its limit, if not exceeded. I probably didn't word that very well, but I read a paper on it. Okay, and also, everything we eat, not everything we eat, but quite a lot of what we eat is quite dependent on the climate. Because, obviously, everything grows in the current climate, and if that climate were to change, suddenly things would stop growing, and then we wouldn't have anything to eat, and then we'd die. What that means basically is that we need to stop digging up fossil fuels, and it would be quite nice if we stopped burning quite as much as the ones we have. Quite a lot at the minute of the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere are caused by industry and transport and agriculture as well. Most of it.
Well, out of those 3 you just mentioned,
Yes.
quite a large, massive portion, like 80%, it is agriculture, and a lot of that is it. Well, it is.
There's no
And a lot of it is intensely farmed in developing countries. If you divest from their industrial development, that will essentially put them in a feedback loop of poverty.
Okay, but greenhouse gas contribution is about 15% agriculture, 15% transport, and 60% industry. So to say it's 80% agriculture wouldn't really be accurate. Anyway, yes. Fossil fuel companies. They're spending money on extracting fossil fuels. As it turns out, we don't really want them to do that, so we should stop giving money to the fossil fuel companies so that they stop digging up fossil fuels and setting fire to them, and thereby metaphorically setting fire to the planet. Yeah. I think that's everything. I don't really have time to get on with the rest of this.
25 seconds.
Yeah, 25 seconds, okay. I just wanted to end that Arctic ice caps melting has revealed more ice, and the fossil fuel company's response to this is to go and drill up that oil as well.
Thank you very much for that speech. I'd like to commend you on your maiden speech for really getting into the literatic spirit of our great paper that day. So thank you very much. And I would like to welcome, opening for the opposition is Mr. Jeremy Mueller.
So let's see if something somewhat sensible comes out of this this speech. It was kind of
collage of all sorts of different ideas, but I'm sure it will be good. No, first of all, I'm really happy that we're having this debate. I think it's important in the context of the university and beyond, especially because we did have this whole fossil-free QED movement. And I think the society or society like this, if people want to have another debating society, that they can start their own. I think it's important. It's important for our actions to start with discussing things, with looking at them in detail, analyzing them, and trying to understand what the implications of our actions are. I would like to start with just a point of response more than rebuttal. We generally agree, as the opposition, that fossil fuels, as they are used now, have certain effects that are far from desirable. And we're not debating the existence of global warming with this debate. What we are considering, however, is the question of whether the continued use of fossil fuels is irreconcilable with taking action on the environment, taking steps to make sure that we can sustain our current level of economic productivity while also not destroying the environment that we depend on for it. And I would like to argue that this is possible. And I would like to start by talking about a few misconceptions. First misconception that is often the case in this kind of debate is that fossil fuels are necessarily dirty and that they are one thing. And this simply isn't the case. We can have discussions about the effects of burning coal, but then even coal can be subdivided into anthracite and lignite. We can talk about natural gas reserves being burned. We can talk about complete combustion or expensive machinery that ensures complete combustion, or machinery that doesn't. We can talk about filtration systems. I would like to add a little bit more color to this often black and white debate and just analyze in detail some things such as the combustion of methane. Essentially, if you have natural gas reserves, which the UK has plenty of, and natural gas is one of the main sources of our energy currently, it's an important source. If you have a complete combustion of methane, the only byproducts you're getting are water vapor, and carbon dioxide. Now, the key problem is not that carbon dioxide is a poisonous bad gas, but that there is an imbalance between the amount that is produced and the amount that is currently able to be absorbed by the environment. And what we propose is that there are some solutions with this. There are some solutions in the form of carbon capture and storage. Another thing that is called carbon offsetting, which is essentially replanting areas of land with vegetation in order to help absorb excess carbon emissions, and indeed filtration. And new technologies are coming out all the time. But first, before I go on to that, I would like to just emphasize that there are a few disadvantages to the supposedly green technologies that some people like to advocate as a one-size-fits-all solution. The first being that they are not entirely practical. If you set up, for instance, a solar power plant or many solar panels in an array, as has been done in Germany, unfortunately, quite unsuccessfully, what happens is that the peak power production is actually just after noon, while peak energy consumption tends to be around the evening. If you have a situation also in the wintertime where solar power is at its lowest while energy demands are at their highest, and the same goes similar for wind power. What we have with fossil fuels, if we can manage the carbon dioxide outputs, is a consistently reliable source of energy, whereas unfortunately we do not have as of yet the technology that is necessary for storing the energy that would be produced in peak times with renewables that we have currently. So let's say batteries that are too expensive right now.
On that point,
yes, go ahead.
Your reference to peak times suggests that we're not going to have any reform of our consumption patterns, but that is always an integral part of green arguments, as well as replacing the source of energy.
I see. So reform of our actions is important. I concur with. I agree with you there. But essentially, there are certain things that are not easily changed, such as the work pattern. People go to work during the day, and when they come home, they want to watch TV. They want to cook their meal. While I completely agree that most of let's say industry is not as rhythm dependent as the average lifestyle of people, I think there are some things that simply cannot be changed with a good argument for it. But let's also look at some of the let's look at renewables. The technology actually requires a lot of what we call rare earth minerals, which tend to be mined in open pit mines in notably China.
Mongolia, Baotao, this is the town in Mongolia, I saw a BBC report. Just technical, you have these open pit mines, essentially lakes of sludge that are being, where toxic liquid is pumped into the nearest valley and toxic waste is being spewed into the air. You have this kind of mining which enables us to cheaply, it would be more expensive otherwise, to produce these kind of renewable technologies. But in the end, overall, we're getting a picture that's not complete because we have the supposedly green technology here and the problems left somewhere else. So a few problems with renewables, my colleague Stefan will go into the details of the problems of the economics of it, the price. But I would just like to say that if we try methods like carbon offsetting, planting trees essentially to absorb carbon dioxide from the air, if what we did, including carbon storage, carbon capture and storage, CCS. If we invested in these kind of methods, what we would be able to do is we would be able to continue in the short term having a relatively cheap technology source of energy, and also that that would be essentially carbon neutral without having some kind of economic disaster. What's important is that we understand too that carbon dioxide and emissions aren't necessarily bad. If we have filtration systems, if we avoid the toxic chemicals that are difficult to get out of our environment, if we avoid nuclear power, which will take a long time to get rid of, essentially what we can do with fossil fuels, if we maintain a proper balance, and if we invest money into the right kind of fossil fuel burning, we can have a solution that is both economical and equitable and good for the environment. So I urge you to oppose this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to invite Johnny Finlay to close for the proposition.
Keeping up with the Kardashians. There's a hard yet to mention that every debate I realize that, but at least we can keep up our 2-week record. Right. We've heard, I think, quite convincingly and quite comprehensively the point, or the argument, for the existence of global warming and the badness of fossil fuels made by my colleague Caleb. I'm simply going to make 3 supplementary points about why we should therefore divest from them. The 3 points are quite simple. 1, it's the right thing to do. I'm going to go there. 2nd, it's the economical thing to do. And 3rd, and this will be the more controversial one, because I was really hoping Craig would be here, it's the conservative thing to do. I've never said I want Craig to be here before. Right, we'll rattle through the first 2 initially. First of all, it's the right thing to do. It's quite simple. It's a categorical imperative. We are morally obliged to not do something that is wrong. It is wrong to invest in fossil fuels that are destroying the environment and can't be sustained in the long term. If we're investing in it, we're sustaining it, the industry. That's wrong. Stop doing it. No, thank you. That's quite simple. No, thank you. Moving on. Oh, by the way, it's worked in the past, divestment. It worked for apartheid in the 1980s. So it clearly does work, no matter what the naysayers say. Usually nay. 2nd, it is the economical thing to do. We've heard a lot about how we're going to offset carbon emissions or whatever. Even if we go with those mad people over at spike.com who think there is no global warming, there's still finite resources. That's why we call them non-renewable. We're going to reach peak oil, we're going to reach peak gas, they're going to run out. It's not secure investment. It's not secure investment for a pension fund if 50 years down the line there's going to be economic and environmental catastrophe because it's run out. It's not profitable, it's not sustainable. No. 3rd, this is what I want to talk about. To the conservatives who might be in the room or listening on the end, I doubt it. I have to ask. No, on the microphone.
Hundreds of listeners, carry on.
Yeah, but we don't attract conservative audience. We're not Russian anymore. Right. I have to ask you, what exactly are you conserving? If your answers contain any of the following words, profits, or national sovereignty, or ethnic purity, or anything like that, then I might as well give up, because you're not the conservatives I'm speaking to. However, if you value more fundamental, old-fashioned conservative principles, such as individual freedom and responsibility, and actually preserving and cherishing our inheritance so we can pass it on to the next generation, then we can have a discussion. It's inevitable, as I said, that we are going to run out of fossil fuels. It's inevitable that a society that is utterly dependent on them, such as ours, is therefore going to face an existential crisis. Now, how would a conservative react to that crisis? Would he or she, or, well, if he is a conservative, he's unlikely to go beyond those, but would he suggest, oh, cripes, we have invested in renewable energy, but now we need it. We don't have time for the market to rectify this. We need massive state investment in establishing a renewable industry. Let's have mass global confiscation of wealth, such as being proposed in Thomas Piketty's Capital, the global wealth tax. Let's have that. Is any conservative going to advocate that? Because that's what you would need to do to pay for it that far down the line when it's such a pressing issue. Or is a conservative going to simply say, I refuse to take no for an answer, Mother Earth. I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to keep drilling. I'm going to drain you for every drop of oil that you might possibly need. And once it's done, maybe then I'll have a lifeless, soulless, joyless, beautyless husk to pass on to my children. Yes.
We currently have enough reserves for the next 100 years, and within the next couple of decades, we expect to have nuclear fusion. We expect to have thorium reactors, which will be able to sustain us indefinitely in a much cleaner and a cheaper way than renewables possibly might.
Well, I think, first of all, the estimates for peak, as opposed to running out, are considerably closer than that. And we're going to have to start rebalancing our investments in our economy whenever we get to peak, as opposed to when it runs out. So I would say it would be a good time to start taking money away from the destructive industry and rechanneling towards a constructive industry as early as possible. That's what a conservative would do. A conservative would say, I'm not going to destroy my inheritance, that was given to me as a sacred trust by my forebears, and is entrusted with me to pass on to my children. I'm going to preserve it. How am I going to preserve that? Am I going to depend 20 or 50 or 100 years down the line on the state to come and say, oh, well, you messed up your investments, but it's okay, we'll take the money now and use it for what you should have done? Or would they say, I will take the initiative now. I will use my initiative, I will use my innovation, I will use my courage and daring, all those things that conservatives claim to value, to put my wealth voluntarily, take it out of something that is destructive and unsustainable, put it into something that is good. Therefore, down the line, we don't have to resort to something more desperate. Now, I mentioned, or at least I meant to mention, Edmund Burke, but because I didn't, this is awkward. However, he said, and he's seen as a great conservative icon, the cliche that's often attributed to him is the only thing that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So whether evil is an overnight state confiscating people's wealth to save the species, or a dead planet completely bereft of everything we love about it, let's not do nothing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to close for the opposition and the debate for this evening is Mr. Stefan Ivaniski.
Thank you for that last clap. It's really cracking up for this. Ladies and gentlemen, here's something I haven't heard from the proposition. Physics. Physics, thermodynamics, and entropy. Imagine that you have a ton of coal and you burn that ton of coal to melt some silicon into a small solar panel, which allows you to light your house up for the next 15, 20 years tops. Whereas the same amount of coal would keep that house lit up for the next 100 years. You're wasting 3/4 of your coal trying to go for something which doesn't work, won't work, and has no chance of working. To create a solar cell, you need to burn more carbon dioxide, you need to burn more fossil fuels, creating more carbon dioxide, and that solar cell will have any chance of reclaiming in its entire working life. Solar cells, windmills, and all the other green technologies need energy, and that energy comes from fossil fuels. That energy that goes into developing renewables has to be dug up from the earth, burned, producing carbon dioxide.
On that point, sir.
Of course.
It uses fossil fuels now, but would that not be seen as an investment in itself, using our remaining reserves to establish a green base growth?
Exactly. You use our reserves now to create something that gives us less energy than the reserves we've already used. We'd be better off just locking up the coal in a cellar and enjoying light than burning all the coal in one go to create something which will only work for a short period of time before it breaks down and degrades completely. And that happens because government grants are completely disrupting the market.
On that point, sir.
Just a moment, please. I'll address any queries and point examples in the casual debate, floor debate afterwards, with any particulars. In Germany, we have huge grants on domestic solar panels and domestic windmills. And even the law is such that whenever there is, as in Germany rightly said, during the peak hours of production, not consumption, but during the peak hours of energy production, coal-fired power stations have to pay money to take the electricity off their hands. Instead of selling money to the national grid, the German coal-powered fire stations are paying money just so that their power plants won't break. A power plant can't be shut down. It takes a week to shut down a proper turbine-driven power plant. And you can't, so they have to pay money to the grid, subsidizing the solar panels and renewables because of stupid legislation which favors them. That raises the cost for German industry. And remember that in industry, the biggest cost is energy. In industry, if something is expensive, that means it requires a lot of energy to make. So if you spend a huge amount of money on a Prius, that doesn't mean that you're saving the environment. That means that you burned tons and tons of fossil fuels to create that little vain pure Prius that you'll drive around and show off to your hippie friend. If you put a solar panel on your roof hoping to make the neighbors jealous or raise your property prices, you are using government grants and fossil fuels to create that, put it on your roof, and enjoy for the next 10, 20 years that it will last before it breaks down. I just accepted a placement with a local company which is developing car engines. And in all the industry, the biggest emphasis is on reducing cost. And since energy is the biggest cost, I would likely spend the next 15 months reducing the energy of a big aluminium foundry here outside Belfast. The engines developed there are getting more efficient with each generation. You can see they have a beautiful display of all the engines, and you can see how generation upon generation the engines are getting better, smaller, more efficient and more powerful. So I will ask the opposition to get off their soapboxes and think about what they can do to improve the state of the earth. To cultivate their own gardens rather than look at others to sponsor their stupid ideas. They are fighting with windmills. They are donkey shop charging the windmill right now but for our money, for the taxpayers' money.
On that point, sir. So, why should we divest from fossil fuels?
Because we are burning more fossil fuels trying to create renewables than we would burn if we are producing more carbon dioxide by trying to go for renewables, which are uneconomical and will produce more carbon dioxide to produce than they will give back or offset, if you will, during their working life. We are burning more carbon dioxide trying to produce renewable energy sources than we would if it was just business as usual. We will be slowly increasing efficiency of every single item of industry. So, So I would ask you to do what I do, Miss Marie-Louise does, or Owen. Cultivate your own garden. Go into a profession that will reduce the energy consumption, the global energy consumption. I mean, I just turned down a job opportunity where I would have spent the next year developing electric heaters and air conditioning, which would reduce a fraction of the energy that normal air conditioning and electric heaters, as we are using right now, would use. That job opportunity is there, waiting for you. Instead of standing here thinking what to do with renewables, blah blah blah, you could go for that job and really make a difference. Develop an air conditioning that will use that heat from the room rather than rather than using electricity that comes from gas or oil. Do that. That's the thing that you should do. Not renewables. Just reduce consumption through your own work, on your own, in your own means. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will take questions for proposition, opposition, and then abstentions on the motion. So does anybody have a question for the Senate? Yes.
This is gotten this at the beginning to make. Both the proposition have said how fossil fuels are bad, quite firmly, and how we should use them. But you haven't offered any kind of viable alternative that could completely replace them. Is that because there's no technology that's advanced enough?
Thank you. One member of the proposition, please.
Well, yes and no. Sit down for one. At the minute, I think thorium fluoride reactors are the most viable thing going as far as replacing fossil fuels for energy consumption goes. I was going to get to this, but I didn't at the time. Nuclear fusion, on the other hand, is literally never going to happen at the rate we're funding it. It would be insanely good if it was, but it's not, and it's not going to be. And fossil fuels, you've got other things too, like petrochemicals, and there's quite a large area of research dedicated to finding much better ways of producing things at the minute that don't involve fossil fuels, using like biochemistry instead. So, to answer the question, yeah, kind of. I don't know.
Okay, thank you much. I don't believe there's a response to that. So, do we have any questions for the opposition this side of the house? Yes.
Stefan made a point at one point in his speech, or in the point of information, that fusion is just around the corner. If fusion is 10, 20 years away, doesn't it make sense to divest from fossil fuels?
10, 20 years, exactly. We need something to keep us going for the next 10, 20 years. We need to use fossil fuels to produce. And we can't just say, right, we're shutting down all the oil wells, we're closing the coal mines, blowing them up, shut, whatever. What if fusion doesn't work? We need to keep our bets open. We can't simply say that fusion is definitely there, we won't be using fossil fuels ever again, that's the end of that. We must keep them going.
Thank you very much. Just a quick point, I can't believe somebody mentioned closing the coal mines and Craig's not here. Do we have any points of standing in the motion? Yes, sorry.
Well, I mean, this is something Mr. Finlay mentioned, but I think it's something, especially considering the points of contention so far, needs to be brought up. That is, how should we see it from the perspective of an individual or an institution to divest from fossil fuels? So what incentive is there for us to do it, or lack thereof? I mean, as the university's finding out, research grants are expensive and oftentimes high yield, 5% or upwards, are fossil fuel bonds. So why should we as individuals, maybe with like a lifespan of 60 years, maybe including our kids, maybe some more, but why should us as an individual divest whenever, as you know, as parties we stand potentially to gain?
Okay, thank you very much. Have a brief proposition and opposition. I believe it was geared here, but.
Well, I can throw a fact at you. I can say that the 2014 report by the British Law Commission established that short-term purely short-term financial return is not actually a particularly good interpretation of an organisation's or an investor's fiduciary duty. There you go, there's a word for everyone, or for me at least. You have to take into account long-term instabilities and unsustainable fossil fuels that are as I say, premised on a carbon bubble. Because if government policy goes anyway toward implementing the Paris Agreement, then there will be less and less extraction of fossil fuels, so it will not be profitable to invest in it. That would be very unwise.
Thank you very much. And you have a response to the opposition?
Yeah, well, I like that point because it really highlights something important. Why should we do anything? What incentive do we have to divest as individuals or as institutions? And I think, well, really, even though our side is the opposition in this case, I think if we have an incentive to divest, if we have a reason, it's probably a moral one. I think as an institution, universities, the university and others have an obligation to be leading in that course of action, in being an example, taking that course of action, which is, after debate and analysis, determined to be the right, the one that is best for us and our children and our grandchildren. And so even though we argued on this side that fossil fuels aren't irreconcilable with caring about the environment, we still think that there is essentially an obligation in that sense to care about the greater surroundings beyond just simple economic profit.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a question for the proposition? Is another gentleman? No, don't think that. Okay. Question for the opposition? Yes.
I think the opposition made a good point in saying that it indeed takes energy to produce, for example, solar energy, produce solar panels. But there have been research reports giving estimates that it would take about 4 years to recover the energy that we have to put into a large solar panel if we put up a solar park, say somewhere in the Arizona desert. Well, they might be operating for about 20, 30 years. So in the end, they would give us a net benefit of clean energy in return.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I look at those numbers, and those numbers, first of all, claim that it's always sunny. They also claim that solar panels work better with more sunlight, which they don't. Solar panels are semiconductors, so the more sunlight there is, the warmer it gets, the less efficient solar panels are until they basically shut down because they can't conduct electricity. Solar panels on a large scale simply do not work. They are only economically viable with huge government grants, as we see here, and only then it will take upwards of 20 years to pay back. But there is hope, which is MERS. MERS and a tower with a big boiler and steam turbine. Those have a future. That technology has not been developed yet, but could be a possibility. It is an alternative, so to speak, to fossil fuels, though again, MERS cost huge amounts of money. MERS need to be maintained. It is more likely to have industrial applications than energy producing ones. So we would still need fossil fuels to power our homes, but solar panels, which are basically mirrors reflecting onto a boiler, have industrial applications as basically big boilers.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any points of stating on the motion? Yes, the back.
I think it's all well and good saying like solar power will help and all that, but solar energy actually killed more people in the UK last year than nuclear did. So it's something else to consider. There may be less of us because of it, so there'll be less fossil fuels used.
Okay, let's see the positive spin on that. Does anyone have a response to? Sorry, I'll just start with nomination. Do you want to clarify?
Yeah.
Can we get a point of clarification? How did they die?
Sunstroke and falling off roofs.
Some solar energy, like not harvesting it.
Installing?
Okay, so people installing solar panels.
Oh, you mean genuinely, like from while building it, not just from the sun. Oh well. Because so construction is in itself a health hazard, so we shouldn't build things. Okay. I concede the point. The opposition have it.
The opposition like to accept their.
We accept the concession. You can keep your swords.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Time to go for one last round of questions. Anyone for the proposition? Yes.
I looked up statistics and yeah, I'm wrong about that. Closer to 30%. But 40%. But the point still stands that both the revenue gained from extraction and agriculture in particular, which is very based on hydrocarbons, both for fertilizers, which is very gas intensive, and for being like logistics, you need to transport that. They're both in the economic south. They're both very dependent on the revenue from oil sales. It's all very well and good for us in our country with like 200 years of industrial development to suddenly start lecturing places like India and China on their responsibility, when effectively this is a problem we've created ourselves. So why is it that we have effectively mitigated the moral responsibility to the South, who are now both going to see the most consequences from global warming and are now also the major polluters? So how would you rectify that contradiction?
Thank you very much. Response to the proposition?
Well, I would just say that, first of all, I suspect, and I may get this wrong, but you got the agriculture thing wrong, so it's I suspect quite a lot of agricultural production that goes on in third world countries is overproduction that's meant for export and isn't even feeding the people there. They probably survive on much less production. It's also trying to fuel industrialization, which doesn't need to be happening in the way that it's happening, because again, the industrialization is for export to the first world. So I think that would be all part of you're suggesting that by disinvesting in industrialization, you get more agriculture, or disinvesting in fossil fuels, just get more agriculture, and therefore more green production. I don't think follows if you took an actual holistic green approach to third world development.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to support the opposition? No, Grant. Do you want to answer?
I think it's a fair point. I think we've, as the West, have made use of 200 years of coal-driven development, and I think it's wrong to be lecturing countries like China on some kind of environmental ethics. We need to consider that as well. And if we want to encourage them to use more environmentally friendly energy production methods, we should probably be helping them financially in that regard. So I think it's a point well taken.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any questions for the opposition? Yes.
Randy, we've become so tantalisingly close to this. We've actually touched on it several times, even in the previous question with Sunstroke. Nuclear power. We've talked a lot about renewables. We've talked about green energy, as you said. What about the glowing green energy? What about nuclear power, which is far more? It's just orders of magnitude more efficient than what we're using currently. It's not about to run out, as coal will eventually. So when you were talking about taking carbon out of the atmosphere and all the rest of it, that's just delaying the inevitable. That's just mitigating the effects of something that doesn't eliminate the fact that it will run out. Now, you haven't really touched on nuclear power. You haven't really put any counter arguments to nuclear power, and nuclear power kills less people than, say, for instance, coal production. Hundreds of people across the world, and not only that, but also now taking into consideration black lung and all the rest of it. So, nuclear power, what is your kind of response to this?
Less people in solar power construction? Yes, go ahead.
The huge startup costs are a big problem, as well as the mining of uranium itself. But I accept that nuclear power is the best, but as we saw in Germany, people don't want it. If people don't want it, they are willing to replace it with gas and coal. I'm not going to force Germany to go back to nuclear. Stop being silly. If they want to have gas and coal, they are allowed to have gas and coal. They need something to run their factories. They need something to produce their cars and keep the houses alight. So nuclear power would be great if people want it, but people don't want it. So they are forced to go back to coal, oil and gas.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a final point of abstention on the motion?
I think that a massive change in general culture around the world needs to change. We need to be more accepting of not using fossil fuels in everyday life. We all throw away recyclable materials every day. I mean, that's only one aspect. I just generally think that the culture needs to change here in the West and all over the world. That it's no longer going to be viable to take the easy option and just jump the car anymore. We're going to have to use bikes and walks everywhere that we go. And I think the major challenge is going to be convincing state governments to put that there, and of course the oil corporations, etc. as well. So.
Just a point of clarification, would you be advocating a cultural shift?
Okay, yeah, well.
That's fine.
Yeah. Cultural shift, it happens all the time, but perhaps it is necessary in this case. We are facing one of the worst ecological disasters, environmental disasters, if this doesn't change. I am inherently pessimistic towards human nature. We always wait until the worst possible occasion to start making changes. We are inherently reactionary, and I think that's what it's going to take for society to sort of wake up and see the damage that we're doing, but at that stage, as Cameron said, it could be too late.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have a response to the proposition?
Yeah, I agree entirely. And the point comes back to nuclear again, even though it's not what you brought up. As the previous point said, should we tell Germany to stop being silly and adopt nuclear power? Well, given that the alternative is that they go on participating in environmental destruction, maybe we should tell them to stop being silly. And also, well, individual effort isn't really going to actually change all that much compared to changing governmental habits. That's probably a nonsense phrase, but let's pretend it makes sense. We spend quite a lot of fossil fuels on building things in other countries and then shipping them to the first world countries. And it would be nice if we stopped doing that, although we're probably not going to anytime soon. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. Yeah, we do need a cultural shift.
Thank you very much. Yes, opposition.
As much as I would like the idea of invading Germany, I don't think it will really. I don't really think that would be what I think that's really. I don't think that increasing our military spending is how we should address global warming. It will work if we nuke Germany. The nuclear winter will keep the global temperatures very low.
I just feel bad for your team now.
Do you think you want to step out?
Yeah, but again, individual effort. For the next year, myself and most of my colleagues from the mechanical engineering course, design engineering and nautical engineering, we will be being paid good money on a year-long placement, increasing efficiency of every aspect of industry. Same with computer science. Computer science, right now, the focus in ICT is not to increase the power, but to improve coding so that the programs are actually more energy efficient, more resource efficient, will use ultimately less electricity to power our computers. So we won't really need a state government intervention. Industry must reduce costs if it wants to stay competitive, and it does reduce costs and it will keep on reducing costs.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the debate. So we're going to move on to a vote. So the first vote is going to be based on your personal opinion, and anybody can vote in this. So if it is your personal opinion that this House would divest in fossil fuels, please raise your hand and say aye. Or divest from fossil fuels. And if you agree with the opposition and believe that this House should not or would not invest or divest from fossil fuels, please raise your hand and say nay. Four. And all those who abstain on the motion based on your personal opinion. He was waiting out there. 3. If all counts. And this one is you can vote for with your membership card. So if you have that handy, please raise that. This one is based on speaker ability. So if you think that the propositions vote better tonight, please raise your membership card and say aye. Yeah, 8. And if you think the oppositions vote better tonight, please raise your hand and say nay, or whatever is appropriate. Not on a vote then. Okay, 2. And all of those who abstain on the motion. Sorry, all of those who think that both propositions are equally good and equally rubbish as opposition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. So I believe that the proposition has the debate. Thank you very much. Just to go over, we're going to do the House Bar off Stonewall Road, and if you would like to enter the Duffin competition next week, you'll find out the motion on the day. It'll be a BP style debate, and you'll have 15 minutes to prepare. Please speak to me after the debate. It's for Speaker of the Year, and our contest is on the 26th of April, so if you'd like to sign up /pay, please see me after the debate. Thanks very much.
Hello, Ben. Did you enjoy the debate, Ben? I really hope you did, Ben.
He's doing something.
Alright, hello, Ben.
Just zone everyone out, Benjamin. It's just me and you right now, okay? Okay. The conversazione money, £35. I want it in at the next possible opportunity. And if it isn't, the boys will be round.
Bye-bye, Ben.